All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really different and honestly a pretty challenging way of looking at our whole financial system. The big idea we're going to unpack is that the Federal Reserve, and yeah, the very money we use every day, might actually be built on a system of debt. Let's get into it. So, to really get to the heart of this whole thing, we've got to start with a pretty wild question. What if those dollars in your wallet, the cash you use to buy stuff, what if it isn't money in the way people have understood it for centuries, but something else entirely? Okay, to understand this argument, you have to see the difference between two totally different ideas about money. On one hand, you've got what this viewpoint calls real money. Something physical like gold or silver that has its own value, right? But on the other hand, you've got what's called debt money. That's our modern currency, and the argument is that it's not a payment itself, it's actually just a promise to pay, an IOU. And you know what? This isn't some new out there debate. This has been going on for a long, long time. This quote from John Adams back in 1820 shows that America's own founding fathers were wrestling with these exact same questions about money, credit, and what it all means, way before the Federal Reserve was even a thing. So, how did we even get here? How did this system of so-called debt money become the standard? Well, according to this view, the story points to one huge, pivotal moment in American history: the creation of a central bank. And get this is a really heavy quote, and it's attributed to the very guy who signed the Federal Reserve Act into law, President Woodrow Wilson. It's said that he looked back on it later with massive regret, a feeling that has really fueled criticism of the whole system ever since. This timeline here really lays out the whole roadmap according to this perspective. It shows this clear three-step journey away from money that was backed by precious metals. It all starts in 1913 with the creation of this new elastic currency. Then a huge move in 1933 when it actually became illegal for regular citizens to own gold. And then the final piece of the puzzle in 1965 when silver was taken out of the coins. And just like that, the link was broken. And people were not quiet about this back then. Critics were sounding the alarm loud and clear. Congressman Charles Lindbergh Sr. gave this incredibly stark warning. He basically said this new system would concentrate so much power that a small handful of people could literally engineer economic depressions. I mean, that is a chilling thought. Okay, so that's the history. But what does this all mean for us, like in the real world? Let's dig into the consequences of a system where our everyday money is technically a form of debt. So the first big idea we have to get our heads around is legal tender. According to this view, there's a really important but subtle difference here. Using legal tender doesn't actually pay a debt, as in, you give me something of value and we're square. Nope, it just discharges it. Think of it like legally hitting the snooze button on the debt instead of actually turning the alarm off for good. And this isn't just a random theory, right? It's an idea that's backed up by legal precedent, like this case, Stangrack v. White, which people often point to. The argument is that when you use a Federal Reserve note, you're not really zeroing out the debt. It's said that in some fundamental way, that debt still exists somewhere in the system. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide kind of maps out the whole process. Step 1, a debt gets created. Step 2, you use legal tender to deal with it. Step 3, your legal responsibility is gone. But, and this is the absolute key to the whole argument, that underlying debt isn't gone. It's just transferred, and it keeps on living somewhere else in the financial system. This theory doesn't just stop at money. It actually extends to the very idea of ownership. The argument goes that when you buy a house with legal tender, what you get is a legal title, which this slide calls just the appearance of ownership. That's totally different from a lawful title, which is defined as true ownership, something this perspective says you can only get by paying with real value. It's a radical way to think about what it really means to own something. So, if this whole debt-based system is the problem, what's the solution? This is where the whole argument takes a really unexpected turn. It's not about some new economic plan or a different kind of currency. It's a call for a massive shift in how we think and act. See, the core idea here is that you can't fix the money until you fix the people using it. From this perspective, the currency system isn't the real disease. It's just a symptom of something much deeper, a society-wide breakdown of trust and moral character. And the first step, it's summed up in one powerful word: repent. Now, we're not just talking in a religious sense here. In this context, it means a complete changing of the mind.
a conscious decision to just think differently and look for a totally new path forward.
And believe it or not, there's a historical model for this. The argument points to the early Christian communities. It suggests they managed to survive the total collapse of the Roman Empire, not because they were rich, but because they built a strong social network. It was all based on taking care of each other, on charity, basically operating as a society within a crumbling society.
All right, so how do we take that historical example and apply it to today? What's the modern day call to action here? Let's look at the game plan.
It all boils down to this. Any truly stable economy, any real society, has to be built on something you can't just print more of. You can't devalue it. And that's something, the real currency, is trust.
So the goal then is to actually build these networks today. We're talking about people forming local, voluntary groups based on mutual support, on honor, on integrity, creating a real alternative that operates outside of those centralized debt-based systems. And that really brings us right back to the beginning, but with a whole new perspective. It completely flips the script. The most important question isn't what's in your wallet anymore, it's who do you trust? It's all about the strength of our communities, not the paper in our pockets.
Now, if this is resonating with you and you want to learn more or maybe even connect with other people who are actively trying to build these kinds of networks, there's a place you can go. You can find more info at preparingyou.com. Wow. Okay. We have covered some pretty heavy stuff today, a completely different lens for looking at our financial world. If you found this explainer valuable or even just thought-provoking, please help us get the conversation going. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive, and definitely share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching.